Really, Olivia? Still wearing last year's jacket? My sister Amanda's voice dripped with mock concern across our parents' giant dining table. If you're struggling, I can give you some of my old designer stuff. I adjusted my jacket, hiding a smile behind my wine glass. At 34, I'd gotten used to being the family's disappointment, the one who never quite measured up. Amanda, my mother said, reaching for the breadbasket, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Not everyone can be as successful as you and Michael. She gave me that usual look, half pity, half shame. Some people just take longer. Michael, fresh off buying his third luxury car this year, chimed in. Speaking of taking your time, when are you upgrading from that shoebox apartment? You still have a window AC, right? He shuddered like it was a tragedy. If only they knew about the contract in my bag, the one I'd signed that morning. I like my place, I said calmly. It's cozy. Cozy is just code for small, Amanda scoffed. Even Dad looked up from his phone. There's still an entry-level job at my firm, Princess. It'd get you into a better neighborhood. I thought about that modest apartment, cheap on purpose, while I funneled my software engineer salary into smart investments, including the one they'd never see coming. I'm doing fine, Dad. Fine isn't thriving, Mom sighed. Look at Amanda with her design firm or Michael's dealerships. They're building something. They didn't know Amanda was buried in business debt, or that Michael's dealerships were a month from collapse. He knew. Always knew. Did you guys see? Amanda perked up. Riverstone Manor finally sold. Can you imagine? That house was Mom's dream. My mother's face softened. Yes, well, some people are just lucky. Heard it went for way above asking. I reached for my bag, fingertips brushing the folder. Actually, I began. Speaking of real estate, Michael cut in. I'm thinking of a vacation home. Modest. 7 bedrooms. Mom lit up. Olivia, maybe ask your brother for investment advice. I slid the folder across the table. Funny you say that, I said. Amanda leaned in. What's this? Did you finally get a better job? No, I said, opening the folder to reveal the signed deed. I just bought Riverstone Manor. Silence. Mom's fork dropped. Dad's phone hit the table. This has to be a joke, Amanda whispered, flipping through the papers. That place has 8 bedrooms. Original gardens. A fountain. He nodded. I close next week. But how? Mom's voice cracked. Living below your means and investing wisely works out, I said with a smile. Oh, and that struggling software career. I'm actually pretty great at it. Michael snorted. Good luck with property taxes. You'll be broke in a year. All accounted for, I said. Unlike some people, I don't buy what I can't afford. Their stunned faces were worth every insult, every eye roll, every time they brushed me off. And this was just the beginning. The next week was chaos. Phones buzzed. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly cared. Aunt Patricia, who skipped speaking to me last Christmas, wanted coffee. My social media blew up. Then Amanda showed up at my apartment, champagne in hand. Sister bonding, she chirped, barging in. Let's celebrate your surprise success. I watched her scan my living room like it was a treasure hunt. That's thoughtful, I said, taking the bottle. Though you were too busy the last 6 times I invited you. She waved it off. Water under the bridge. Now tell me, how did you really buy Riverstone? Secret investor. Inheritance. I just smiled. Oh wait, are you dating someone rich? Amanda's eyes lit up. No, I said calmly. I told you, I saved and I invested wisely. She laughed in disbelief. That's impossible. You live here. You drive that old car. You wear. She motioned vaguely at my clothes. I just smiled, thinking of the other properties in my portfolio. Investments my family didn't even know existed. Appearances, I said simply, can be deceiving. Michael tried a different angle. He called me a few days later with a suspiciously warm tone. Hey sis, Just wanted to apologize for any past tension. By the way, I've been dealing with some minor cash flow issues at the dealerships. Nothing serious, but if you're open to a partnership. Sorry, I cut in. My investments are already allocated. Then came my parents. Mom showed up first, arms full of interior design magazines and dreams. Darling, she gushed, spreading the glossy pages across my kitchen counter. I've been thinking about Riverstone's potential. That east wing would be perfect for family dinners, like the ones we used to have. I let her talk for a few minutes before gently cutting in. Mom, I'm not renovating Riverstone for family events. Her face fell. You're not planning to live there alone, are you? That house is meant for family. You're right, I said. It is meant for family, just not ours. She blinked. What do you mean? I opened my laptop and showed her the designs I'd been working on. Riverstone's going to be a shelter for families in crisis. The East Wing will house single mothers rebuilding their lives. The West Wing, transitional housing for families escaping abuse. Her expression went pale. You're turning our dream home into a shelter. Your dream home, I corrected. My investment in something that matters. She left in tears. My father came the next day, pure business. This shelter plan, he said, settling stiffly into my armchair. Admirable, but impractical. Let's talk numbers. I'm prepared to make an offer. It's not for sale, I said evenly. He frowned. Don't be difficult. Everyone has a price. Not me. I handed him a folder. These are the approved permits. Renovations begin next month. His eyes scanned the documents, his jaw tightening. You're serious. Completely. And just so you know, everything's legally locked in. The house is held in a trust, bound to its charitable purpose. You can't touch it. He stood slowly. You've changed, Olivia. No, Dad. I just stopped pretending to be the daughter you wanted. That evening I drove out to Riverstone Manor. The sunset bathed the historic stone in warm gold. I stood in front of the grand entrance, just like my mother once dreamed, and tried to see what they saw, a symbol of status, trophy. But I didn't see it that way anymore. I pictured something different. Rooms filled with warmth and laughter, children finally sleeping safely, mothers rediscovering their strength, families starting over. My phone buzzed. A message from Amanda. Mom's devastated. How could you do this to the family? I typed back. I'm not doing anything to the family. I'm doing something for families who need it. Then I turned off my phone, opened my laptop and got back to work. The contractor estimates still needed reviewing, and I had a meeting the next morning with a nonprofit that would help run the shelter. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing my family's approval. I had bigger plans. 6 months later, I stood in Riverstone's restored entryway as the first family arrived. A young mother held her daughter's hand, their suitcases worn but packed with everything they owned. The little girl looked up at the staircase, wide-eyed. Is this really where we're going to live? For now, sweetheart, her mother said softly, eyes glistening. We're safe here. I showed them to their room. New furniture, soft colors, fairy lights strung along the ceiling. The child smiled in wonder. My throat tightened. This was what success looked like. A local paper ran a story. Historic Riverstone Manor transformed into shelter for families in need. The headline made waves. Soon after, my mother showed up at my apartment, visibly shaken. You've made us a laughingstock, she cried. The country club is buzzing. Mrs. Henderson asked if we were having money troubles. I kept typing, focused on my notes for Riverstone's new education center. And what did you tell her? I asked calmly. I said we were supporting your charitable work, she admitted, sinking onto the couch. But I still don't understand why you had to use Riverstone for this. I finally looked at her. Because it's the one place you all believed was meant to show how far we'd come, I said. And now it does. Just not the way you imagined. We could have found you another building, my mother said. I looked up from my laptop. Mom, this was never about you. Or the family's reputation. Some things matter more than what people at the country club think. She blinked, as if I were speaking another language. But we're Caldwells. Image is everything. No, Mom, I said quietly. Image is nothing. Impact is everything. Amanda and Michael kept their distance. I heard through whispers that Amanda's business had finally collapsed under its debts, and Michael had to sell 2 of his dealerships. The glossy facades they clung to were cracking, while the so-called failure of the family had built something they couldn't even begin to understand. The biggest surprise came from my father. He showed up at Riverstone one afternoon, stiff in his tailored suit, clearly out of place among the children playing in the gardens. I saw the article, he said, watching a group of kids race around the fountain. The shelter's full. Yes, I replied. And we've got a growing wait list. He nodded slowly, quiet for a moment. Your grandmother, my mother, left an abusive marriage. All she had was a suitcase and me. We lived in a shelter for 3 months. Nowhere near this nice. Froze. I had never heard that story. She would have been proud of this, he said, glancing around the grounds. Of you. Would you like a tour? Asked gently. He hesitated, then nodded. As we walked through the manor, I showed him the education center where residents earn their GEDs, the computer lab for job applications, the playroom full of donated toys and books. Kids waved at us. Women nodded with cautious warmth. Slowly, my father's rigid posture softened. In the kitchen, where a cooking class was underway, he finally spoke again. This isn't what I imagined for you, Olivia. I wanted you to be successful. I am successful, Dad, I said, looking around. Just not the way you imagined. He studied the room, watching a little boy proudly stir pancake batter. Then he looked back at me. No, he said quietly. You're more successful than I ever imagined. 2 weeks later, a large anonymous donation landed in the shelter's education fund. I recognized the banking details. It came from my father's company. At the next monthly family dinner, something had changed. My mother still fussed over appearances. Amanda still wore designer labels like armor. But when I talked about the shelter's winter programs, they listened. When I mentioned our funding needs, my father took notes. Actually, my mother said hesitantly over dessert, I might have time to help with the art classes you mentioned, if you still need volunteers. It wasn't a complete transformation. They were still Caldwells, still image-conscious, still status-driven. But they were learning slowly that success didn't always look like a new car or a headline. As for me, kept my old car. I still lived in the same cozy apartment. And now, when my family joked about how poor I was, I just smiled. Because real wealth isn't always about what you own. Sometimes it's about what you give away. The little girl from the first family still lives at Riverstone. Her mother now takes business classes and helps run the kitchen. Some evenings, I see them in the garden. The girl waves at me from beside the fountain my mother once called her dream. And I think about how that house, once a monument to status, became something more. Not just a dream home. Real home. For people who truly needed one.